Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 642 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's episode, you're going to hear three voices. Mine, I'm Scott, Marilyn, she's Marilyn, and Joe, Marilyn's son. Joe has type 1 diabetes. Marilyn reached out to me a long time ago to get me to come speak at something in Manhattan, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't remember exactly. It was a long time ago. Anyway, we've been in contact a lot since then. I've gotten to know them, and I wanted you to hear their story. Please remember while you're listening today that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Are you from the United States and have type 1 diabetes or care for someone who does? Perfect. You are eligible to join the T1D registry and take their survey. T1Dexchange.org/juicebox. Head over there, answer the simple survey. Doesn't take long, I swear, like less than 10 minutes. You're going to help people living with type 1 diabetes, and you're going to support the Juicebox Podcast. T1Dexchange.org/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored today by Omnipod, makers of the Omnipod DASH and the Omnipod Promise, two things that I will tell you about later in the show. For now, try hard to remember this link, omnipod.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored by Touched by Type 1. And guess what? Touched by Type 1 has a big golf tournament coming up on Saturday, April 2nd in Orlando, Florida. Would you like to register? Would you like to learn more? You can at touchedbytype1.org. Okay, we're going to get to the show now, but just remember there are links to these sponsors and all the sponsors in the show notes of your podcast player and at juiceboxpodcast.com. I don't usually say that here, but I'm enamored with how my voice sounds right now, so I'm just looking for reasons to keep talking. Here comes Marilyn and Joe.
My name is Marilyn. I am a mom to two kids. My older daughter, Jenna, is 22. My son, Joseph, is soon to be 19.
Wow. Happy birthday, Joseph. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm Joseph, one of the two kids, and also the diabetic.
How old were you when you were diagnosed?
9 years old.
9. Okay. Wow. So that's half your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Marilyn, I feel like you and I met when you sent me an email and tried to get me to come to New York to speak at something. Is that right?
I did. That is one email that I reached out with. I think my first email was when I first found your podcast and felt so relieved that I found something that made sense to me. And you answered, and I was even more shocked because I thought, wow, he really answered. He's a real person. This could work. But then, yes, I did try to set something up here on Long Island.
Let me ask you, the first time you reached out, how long ago do you think that was?
That was, I started listening to the podcast in July.
She's gone.
Again.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's doing.
I don't know that she's doing anything. Is she on like something wireless? She's doing it through a phone or something like that?
No, she's on her laptop.
On her laptop?
A laptop with plugged-in headphones. I made it foolproof so she couldn't cut out.
Dude, the fun thing is she's talking right now.
Yeah, I know.
Marilyn, hi. You're back.
I'm back. Yeah, I just got a message that my internet connection was unstable.
Okay. Is there a spot in the house where she could walk a little closer to the router maybe or something like that?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Okay.
Ma, if no one's there, go to the living room.
People are here.
Oh.
What people?
I'm out of ideas.
This older daughter?
Okay.
This older daughter who escaped diabetes?
Yeah, the lucky one.
Nah, she's not home.
Oh.
She's not home yet. My husband's home.
Oh, he should get a job.
Soon
Middle
to be leaving, right? He's on vacation this week.
Oh my goodness. We need money being made. He needs
right.
He can relax when you leave him and not before.
I already gave him the riot act not to come in the room, no matter what. How's that? A little better?
We'll find out. So,
okay.
July of when did you find the podcast?
2019.
Oh, okay. So, see, the reason I find that interesting is because, we're really only talking about 2 years, but Joseph's had type 1 for 9 years. So,
right.
Were you twisted up for 7 years?
Pretty much. Yeah. I, knowing at the time, I don't think I thought that because I was listening to our doctors and I thought I wasn't someone like when I listen to the podcast now, and even your story, how you thought, this can't be right. There must be more. I was to the side of, okay, this is what the doctor says. So he's the expert. We fortunately never had anything in our lives or extended family where we've ever had, chronic illness or something where we had to deal with doctors all the time. It pretty much was like our checkups once a year. My kids weren't really sick kids. They didn't have earache. I just trusted what they said.
You were just rolling along.
The first couple of years, it was just like, okay, well, we'd go every 4 months. They would tell me, all right, well, you do want him like, between 7.5. And we were kind of close, but not really. But he never really, made me feel like I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Okay. So for a number of years, Joseph, you've got an A1C in the 7s-ish, you're a kid, and do you see anything wrong with what's happening? Are you having issues?
No, I had no idea.
Okay. All right. And so, Marilyn, when you figure it out, you're listening to me and you're like, there's a different way to do this. And does that panic you then? I mean, when does it upset you?
Yes. When, I kind of back up a little. 2018 was kind of just a wacky year in our lives. We just had a lot going on, and my husband and I were like all over the place, and we finally kind of like regrounded ourselves. And I think it was just the toll of, me not sleeping for a number of years. And I was just burnt out, and it reflected in our relationship, and things were just, I was always angry with everybody. And so 2018 kind of straightened all that out. And then I kind of realized I haven't even paid attention, not that I didn't pay attention to his diabetes, I was treating it, but I wasn't focused on it.
Okay.
And I kind of got to the point that I said, this can't be good. These high can't be good. And I wanted to do something about it. And I literally I was working my job. I wasn't working through the summer at that point. I was working in a school, but then I had gotten a job where I was working through the summer, and I had about a 25-minute commute. And I literally sat one morning and I said, I've never listened to a podcast. So I was like, I need some direction, something like maybe there's a podcast on diabetes. Let's start with that instead of looking for a book or whatever. I never joined any Facebook groups. I never reached out that way. I had no one really in our lives that I could go to. When he was first diagnosed, we were involved with JDRF. But then truthfully, even Joseph got to the point as he got a little older, he said, I really don't want to do these walks. I really don't, nothing against that. But
no, I understand.
So I didn't have any, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to I want to, before I move forward, Joe, I've called you Joe a ton, but now your mom's calling you Joseph and it's panicking me, but you want to be called Joe, right?
You can, Joe is fine. She's called me Joseph forever, no matter how much I try and just say, call me Joe.
Listen, when you name your son after the Lord, you want to reuse the name as much as you can. Okay.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah.
No pressure there at all, Joe. Just
no, none at all.
Please unite the universe. Could you please?
Plus, coming from an Italian family, when you have 17 Joes and Josephs, it's kind of like you try to, you're a Joe, you're a Joseph,
It's Michael in my wife's family.
Yeah, there's always one name. Yep.
Right. We'll go somewhere and everyone will be named Michael except the people in my family.
And the whole room turns.
You're just like, I don't even know. These people need nicknames, and they all have them now because of it. It's funny. You name your kid something, and then you end up calling them something completely different because it's
right.
And it's not the point. The point is
No.
this, Joe. So Joe's rolling around, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
14, 15, yeah.
Joe, are you even aware of your A1Cs other than I see you're a really kind of grounded person. Joe and I have spoken a number of times. So, tell me what it's like to go into those appointments as a kid. Are you paying attention? Do you really care? Like, what is that like, your doctor's appointments?
I hated it. Not as much now because like the control I have, I'm kind of like I'm not scared to go to them anymore because I know what I'm doing. But as a kid, I always used to tell my parents it felt like Alien, where I would just lay on a table and they would examine me and like check me, and like they would check like my sight points and be like, where are you doing your shots? They'd have to like feel where you're doing your spots to make sure it's not irritated. Like it would just freak me out. I felt like an experiment. That's what I would always tell them.
So it's just an uncomfortable situation. You're not taking anything, like you're not leaving and going, oh, here's a useful bit of information I have now.
No. Okay. It was just a time where they would look at me and then they would like report to my mom and I would have to leave. Like I would just have to be there,
Did you have any feeling of pass fail, or did you not even think of it that deeply?
Not really. No.
Okay. All right. How about you, Marilyn? Did you feel pass fail, or you didn't know enough about it back then to think you were doing good or better or worse or anything?
I did when he was initially diagnosed and we started. I remember, in fact, it's funny. I pulled out all my notes from diagnosis. I saved everything, and getting ready for the podcast, I said, well, let me go over my dates and know what's going on. And when I looked through the notes that they gave us, when it was, I don't know if it's comical or sad, but I have a whole page of his A1Cs that I would handwrite and binder notes. And I had to write down his blood sugars all the time we tested. And all I have is a note that says A1C, 6.5 to 7, excellent, 7 to 7.5, very good. And that was my barometer. Like that was so as I look through all my notes, like next to some I have sad faces, next to some I have happy faces, but to look at them, it's, so I would feel like we waited 4 months and then I got this number and now I'm like, oh, I suck at it. Like, what did I do? But
were you making any purposeful decisions?
No, I didn't know. I can't explain it. I didn't know to kind of take the reins and just say, there's got to be a way to deal with this.
Okay.
Not that it's ironic, but my brother, he's 9 years older. He was diagnosed in his early 40s as a type 2, and he lived in Jersey at the time. And not that we're not close, but we don't talk on a daily basis. It's, not, how it is.
I have a brother.
And I remember hearing, Mark, if they say he's type 2, but he's so young. So he was the type, I'm not taking any pill. I can do this with diet and exercise. And about a year and a half later, he was type 1 and started, then he ended up in the hospital. He lost like 30 pounds. But because I remember my parents going there, but because he was so out of touch, I didn't even know enough. Like nobody talked about it. That's how, I don't know. That's just how my family was.
So
like,
your brother was misdiagnosed as a type 2 for about a year.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. I know that now. I didn't know that then. And it was kind of like, is he okay? Yeah, he's okay. Okay. I was like, okay, so he's on it. Okay.
Joe,
but I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah. Any chance, Joe, that he's an uncle that you look like? Facial structure, height, body style?
No.
Nothing like that? I was just wondering. Okay. I'm always looking for like little like connection points when we're having these conversations. Joe, if I told you your mom is a verbose email writer, would that surprise you?
If you want to tell me what the word verbose means,
okay. All right.
I will totally back you up.
She writes plentifully with many words and goes on. And
yeah.
Oh, this makes sense to you?
I totally.
I think I talk that way too.
Oh my God,
He does.
Marilyn, if you passed away right now and they were looking for your writings, I may be in possession of some of them.
I do. It's funny. I often find I get my thoughts out better on paper than verbally.
God, you should see her text.
She doesn't understand the brevity of texting.
She texts in chapters. So like, I'll be out, whether it's my girlfriend, my friends, whatever, and I'll get a text, and it's like, "Hi, you're 260," or no, not even that high. It'll be like, "Hi, you're 182," and then like she'd hit like return and make a space below, and then there's another line, and then it's like, "I would suggest taking this amount of insulin. What did you eat? Did you do this? What did you eat for breakfast? What's on your kit? Did you check your kit? Your sensor could be off." And it's like 8 lines about like what I could possibly be doing.
When you're giving my eulogy, you will say how your mother cared.
I bet you'll say my mom could never figure out texting.
You're right. He didn't. He would always get mad at me because I would use the ... after I'd say a statement, and he would yell. He would say to me, "Mom, that's not good." I'm like, I'm just like giving a pause, and I don't know. He corrects all my.
I get pressured.
Yes, I do.
I get pressured for using punctuation well in texting by my children,
Yes.
and my son does not like it if I call him and I don't FaceTime him. Like if I FaceTime him, that's okay, but if I call him, he does not seem to like talking on the phone.
No.
Really?
Yeah. So
because they don't realize that's what the phone is for.
I don't care about talking on the phone.
You're all right with, well, yeah. Okay. See, look, everybody's got their thing. But anyway, you wrote some really long emails, but I want to say something about them. I apologize. Don't apologize. As we're joking about them, they were also very cogent and thoughtful, and they got me to write you back because I've received long emails that ramble, and I just kind of pretend like I didn't see them. You know what I mean?
Delete.
Because I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, there's part of me that's like, am I about to reply to like a person who's in the middle of a psychological breakdown that I'm not qualified to help with? And
I probably was.
But you were, but yours seemed manageable.
I knew I was crazy.
and I knew I was crazy. I don't think you can be crazy and know you're crazy, but
I don't know.
I don't know the technicalities. I also don't think the word crazy is acceptable any longer. But
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Not one thing you will learn about me. I am not politically correct.
Well, Marilyn, if you don't know how to text, I'm pretty sure you're not going to know the wokeness of culture. So
no, I'm not woke.
Anyway, so then we start talking more about, like, I guess you were involved with JDRF still, and you were trying to get me to this event, and I kept telling you, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think they're going to want to do this. And you were like, no, and you were really persistent. I just thought, like, okay, well, let her go. Like, maybe she'll work it out. And but at the same time, we started talking more about like management stuff, and Joe, you and I ended up on the phone together for a while, right? Like I basically gave you a private talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was that like? Like leading up to it, were you like, oh my God, my mom's going to make me talk to a stranger on the phone? Or
I don't really mind talking to people. Like that wasn't the problem. I was just like, who is this guy giving me advice on my diet? The one's like, I found this podcast, and she's like, I'm gonna have this dude call you and he's gonna tell you what to do. And I was like, what? I was just joking. But
do you go to your father? Do you go to your father and go like, was she the only one? What happened? How did we end up like this? What did you do?
Well, he's forgetting. After I found the podcast in July, I started following your Facebook group and your page, and within weeks, I see a post that you are going to be local to me at a church in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's right.
And I thought, oh my God, we're going. And that's when I had said to my husband, I'm like, listen, I found this guy. I found this podcast. He's on, our coast. It's not far. I'm like, you want to go away for the weekend? And he was like, all right. I'm like, we'll get a hotel. It'll be like a getaway. Meanwhile, I'm like, we're going to sit at this thing all day and we're going to learn how to do this. So I kind of got, he was on board, I guess, because it was a night away, and I came to see you live.
So what happened?
And I remember saying to Joseph, listen, I found this podcast, like, you're welcome to come if you want to learn. He's like, you go. He's like, you just come back and tell me what he said.
So
I
just said, right. I was just like, let me know what you learned.
Yeah. So I have two things around that. First of all, I was getting ready to do like 9 speaking events in 9 months. Mm-hmm. And I just like, almost like you do, you'll Chris Rock will roll into a comedy club where 10 people are because he needs to brush up. I was like, I gotta do a practice one and get myself rolling again. And I wanted to do it. And then someone online said, like, I'll find the space. Will you come? And I was like, all right, well, that's good. I can kind of like shake the rust off. And also when you're doing these things online with people, like a lot of people say things that never come true, and you just learn to say, that would be nice. Thank you. And, then you don't hear from them again. But when someone says to you, I think I can get a space, and then suddenly like 12 hours later, like, I have the space. Right. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this now. And, and then I find out someone drove from Long Island, and my understanding of Long Island, which I've brought up on the podcast a number of times, is that my son used to have to play baseball once in a while way out on the island. And all I know about it is I hate driving there and driving back from there.
You told me that in your first email.
Yes, that's all I know about Long Island is that like bridge. It is a horror to drive through.
It is.
And so when you came from there, like my frame of reference was, these people really wanted to do this because that is not a pleasant commute, to get here. But the other part of my thought, based on our brief conversation just now, was that I completely understand how Joe must have felt, because I'm that person, really. Like, it feels a bit incongruous, if I'm being honest, who I am with how I think about the world. Because if I wasn't me, I would think this situation is completely ridiculous. Like a person with a podcast talking about a health thing that somebody drove to and made their kid call somebody on the phone. Like I would, if it wasn't me, I'd step back and go, you're out of your mind for doing this. So I only don't feel that way because I know the truth of it. But how are people on the outside of me supposed to know that I'm not a lunatic?
You know what really did it? When Joseph started, he had, after like a few years of diagnosis he started a diabetes camp in the summer, which it was out on the island. I really wanted him to go. He didn't want to do it the first, I think, 2 years. And then I bribed him. I don't know. I promised something. I got him to go. And they each summer would have, different activities each day. And then they would have reps come out and you'd get samples of things or pamphlets. And that's how I learned about the Dexcom. And when he came home with it, I was like, what in the world is, like, I never even thought to think of technology. I knew he didn't want a pump. Like, I knew about a pump in the beginning. He learned about that and he never wanted it. And I always felt like, I'm not going to force him to do, he got handed this deal. I'm not going to force him to do that if he didn't want it. I just wasn't in that headspace. Okay. So when I learned about the Dexcom, that was one thing that I thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So we did start him. He started on that we were just trying to figure that out. It was right before, it was 2016.
Joe, did you bring that pamphlet home because you felt like you were supposed to, or because you saw it and thought, okay, I would actually like this?
To be honest, I probably threw it in my backpack and she found it.
I love the difference between what actually happens and what people's parents think are happening.
Right. He probably just had to bring it home.
In his heart, Scott, he knew deep down that he wanted to make this.
Yeah. Now I know Joseph better. And I went to my doctor. When we went, I said, I want that, I'm going to do, and I called the rep. We got it all set up. And when I saw that, we would check, I was like, when he wakes up, breakfast, lunch, dinner, before bed, 2 a.m. for years. And when I saw what was happening in between, I remember it's like embarrassing to say that I was like, oh my God, this is impossible. Like this, he goes up and down and this and that. And I remember saying to the endo, this is happening. Like, this isn't good. Right. So if I check him 3 times a day and his number happens to be 160, great. But if it was 330, and he was like, well, he didn't say, like, you really want to try to work on it. It was almost like, yeah, that's what I think got me after. It took a while, but I was like, something's wrong. Like, this isn't right.
I think when Dexcom first came out, I think that it shone a light on a lot of endocrinologists. I bet you they didn't like it at first. I bet you at first they looked at these charts and went, "Oh, people are going to ask questions about this." Right. Right.
And I have to say, we've had the same endocrinologist from when he was diagnosed. And I like him, and we got along with him, and I have nothing against, I believe he was doing what he was, he's with a big hospital, and I believe he was doing what he was taught. It's a huge practice, whatever. But since learning what I've learned and being the way I am, now that what I know, it's just a shame. And it really does fall in the same, I mean, I haven't found in my notes, I told Joseph last night, I think, my notes said if at bedtime and 2 a.m., only correct if he's over 250. I was like, that's mortifying. Like,
now it's mortifying.
So,
you're like, oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, right. So, the thought of what I did that's how I took it. Like, that put me in a bad place too for years of like, what am I doing to him? What did I do to him? I wasted these years that I could have been, he could have been healthier. He could have been like, what did I do?
Even earlier in your conversation, you said something that gave me that horrible wasted time feeling.
Yes.
And Joe, you're still young, so it probably doesn't feel like this still, but at some point in your life, you'll start thinking about like time is gone, or I've made a decision that I can't fix. It's a horrible feeling as you get older. And when it relates to health or your children, it's worse. You know, like when you wake up one day and you realize your 16-year-old is a pompous ass and you go, oh God, what I do, it's too late. You know what I mean? Like I made decisions when the kid was 7 that led to this. And now what do I do? Like it's a really terrible feeling. And Marilyn, you're running around being angry. Joe, were you aware she was angry? Or did you just think she was crazy?
I didn't think she was crazy. I knew she was angry about something, but I think I was too young to understand why.
Okay. Did she seem angry at your dad or angry at you or angry in general?
I think she was angry at me for reasons that I couldn't understand. And like, even when I say that, I don't think she was mad at me. I think she was just mad at the situation and the fact that she, like you guys are saying, she did feel like she put me in harm's way for so many years. But I didn't think that way. I just thought, take the shot, check your blood sugar and move on with your day,
But you felt that anger coming towards you?
Yeah, I just didn't really know why.
Okay.
Now that I look back, I can see it really wasn't me. It was the situation.
Right. Marilyn, does that break your heart?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because I know I was angry. I know I was. So, I mean, it affected, I think, plus I am the sole, now that Joseph's older, it's kind of like the two of us, but I was the one that like took the reins with this. And it was solo act. Like even when he was first diagnosed, I gave the shots. Like it just was the way it was.
What'd you do at school, Joe? Who injected? How'd you inject at school when you were younger? Did you do it?
If I remember right, I went to the nurse and I did it.
You did it at the nurse's office?
Yeah.
Okay. All
right.
Well, once you started doing your own shots, you did. But in the beginning, he was only on short acting and long acting twice a day. So he had to eat exactly, like we had to give him exactly the same carbs all the time because that's what they told us to do.
Joe started on regular and MPH?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How far out on that island do you live?
Right? Cloudy and clear. I remember rolling the bottle,
9 years ago.
What should it have been?
9 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was Humalog and Humulin and pH. And we gave it at breakfast twice and dinner twice. Oh, so he would eat. I mean, it's funny. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure Joseph remembers it because it was horrible. Like in the beginning, I remember them telling us, well, if he's hungry, because he had to eat for what I gave, for the insulin we gave him. So they never said, like, if he wants a snack, just give him. It took about a year, 6 months, a year into my notes where it was like, if he wants a snack, give him a unit and let him have a snack. So they would tell us, he can have like Jell-O and whipped cream and macaroni. Do you remember how many cups of?
I would like throw up whipped cream. I don't eat Jell-O to this day because it's all I ate.
I'm mortified that I can remember saying, if he was like, I'm hungry as a kid, and I'm like, you want a cup of Ready Whip? You want a cup of, it's embarrassing, but that's what they told them.
Like, no one in the history of the world has ever said, do you want a cup of Ready Whip?
I'm like, that'll fill you.
Joseph,
a growing boy who's underweight to begin with because he's lost,
would you like a bite of dusty air, Joe? By the way, I got stuck.
It's got no carbs.
You said a minute ago, like, I'm sure he remembers it because it was terrible. And I thought, I bet you that's how the girl I lost my virginity to talks about that night. I'm sure she remembers it. I can't
even think about it because it makes me.
But here's the interesting thing, right? Like, you're involved and interested. You're going to doctor's appointments. And you're trying to be in the community. You're going on JDRF walks and getting that kind of stuff. He's going to camps and stuff. And so I'm going to probably come off poorly for a second here to some people, but you're doing all the things that the system wants you to do. And but it means nothing. Valueless to you.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, sister.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what, when I found your podcast, at first I literally, because I didn't even know, I was like, I don't even know how to download that podcast player. I don't even know how to do this. I never had done it. And I just Googled, I typed in the search, and there was another one or one or two that came up first. But then I saw Juicebox, and I just thought, I'm like, oh, that's cute. I was like, yeah, that's a cool title. Okay. And I hit that, and I went to the beginning because I didn't think, like, let me do the most current. And I listened to the interview with Adam from American Idol.
Okay.
And then I listened to a few others. And when I heard you talk about the number in between and the Dexcom and bringing it down, and it literally, I was like, that's it. Like, that's what I've been saying. I've been saying this shouldn't be happening in between checking on a meter. And that's when I knew, I'm like, this is something. This is it. I can't even explain to you how happy I was and how relieved. So when you say you can't believe that people, that you do a podcast and people get such value out of it, it's because, sadly, I guess, and maybe back then now there are more doctors that see the things you see and say, but it wasn't around. It was like I struck gold.
Yeah, nobody's.
And then when I found out, and then I was like, who is this guy? And then when I found out, like, you were real and on the East Coast, I was like, oh my God, like, I could drive to his house and find him if I wanted to and ask him my question.
Easy.
Let me write him an email.
Easy. There you go. Email, better.
That's it.
Yeah. Plus, I sound enough like you that it's, probably comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do get your humor, which makes it. And that was the other part of it. It wasn't boring, and it wasn't like someone was preaching to me, and it was entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, even now, I don't know but
I keep waiting for someone to try
to. It gets me happy.
Thank you.
If I don't know what would have happened. I really don't. I don't even want to think that I still would have been that.
Well, let's go over
with their head.
No, Meryl, let's go over it. I saved your marriage, right?
You did.
Yeah. Okay. I probably saved your kid's life.
Probably.
Right. I mean,
made me a nicer person.
I made you a better person. I mean,
right,
really,
Joseph? I'm a nicer person now.
Super.
Listen, whatever that 10% is you send to the church, I think just send to me for a while, and we'll be fine. We'll call it.
I buy you coffees.
I am teasing. Please, no one.
I was so happy you did that.
Oh my God, that freaks me out. So still, like, everything about my life gives me what they call douche chills. I don't know, Joe, if that's.
And I don't know why.
Because
when I hear you say that,
it's uncomfortable.
It shouldn't be.
But you think that because you had the experience. I mean, listen, I was just being, I was just joking a second ago. But at the same time, if we step back and act like adults for a second. A podcast did those things.
100%.
It's a real thing, like, right. And I am a good guy. Like, I did show up at a church in the middle of wherever the hell it was. And, and talked to, what do you think? There might have been 40 or 50 people there.
Oh, I think you had a little more than, I'd say 100.
Nice
you
draw.
You had a good crowd that day.
Had a good crowd. We talked to some people, helped people out. Listen, I'm a
on
decent
a Saturday on your own time.
I'm a decent person. I know that, right? Like, I know my values and I know my goals. And it's just, I mean, I'm 50. Joe, seriously, when your mom says your podcast to a 50-year-old, like, there's a part of you that goes like, you get a job, man. Like, right? Like, you feel it a little bit, don't you?
I mean,
You guys are indoctrinated now. You can't even say anything bad about me. Come on.
No, I mean, at some point, like, yes, I get it, where it's like, what else does this guy have to do? Like, doesn't he want to do anything? Or like, but at the other point, I get it because I can't really criticize you, because one time I remember my mom like laying everything out for me about what your show and everything has done for us. And I just sat there on my bed and I was like, so you're telling me this stranger like kind of saved my life? She was like, yeah. And I was like, you kind of did. So I can't really bash you.
Yeah, I know, but we were trying to have fun, Joe, and you wouldn't say anything bad. So now we have to. Now I'm the one left self-deprecating humor, and it's too much.
I'm still having fun. I think it's pretty
good. So I mean it, genuinely. It's a strange thing. Like
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, like today, when you and I are done today, my wife and I are going to a wedding. Like, so I'm jamming this in today because it's my job. You know what I mean? And the 3 days prior to today, the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're speaking on Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week in September of 2021, those 3 days had more downloads than 2015 did when I started the podcast. The entire year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but that's a weird thing to wrap your head around.
But I can see your point, but I can also see from when I jumped on board and started listening, the growth that you have had and watching it like as a
I'm better at
viewer,
it now.
Subscriber, fan.
No, yes.
Oh, I didn't think you were bad when I started listening. When I started listening way at the beginning, it was funny how different you could tell like you had just started.
Yeah, no, of course.
I think you're much more comfortable. I think you're much more well known. I really do.
Comfort's a big part. I did a podcast this week with somebody else. I was on someone else's podcast, which I don't normally do, but this person really grabbed my attention. And, you know, she asked me the first question. And I was like, there's a feeling inside. Like, you just like, I'm like, I could talk about this forever if I had to. And try to make it interesting and entertaining. You know, like that really is what lacks. Like, it's funny. I know other people who have, you know, diabetes. They put up diabetes content. I know they listen to the show because I put up a topic and then 4 days later I watch them put the topic up. And so I realize it's being listened to. But they have no real, they're not
substance.
They're not. I don't know if they don't have substance or not. I don't listen to their podcast, but what I do know is that they don't have the reach. And right. If it was as easy as saying, "Well, just do it the way that guy does it," then they would. But I don't think it's that easy. So I do give myself credit for that part of it. I do think there's something about this whole mix of me and my ideas. Ooh, hold on.
Yes.
Excuse me. Me and my ideas and how I go about things. It does coalesce well.
Yes.
But I couldn't
you have a gift.
Why.
You have a gift
chatty.
To reach people, to be entertaining, to be, I don't want to say deep, for lack of a better word, but you can touch people. You can, in a good way.
My pop psychology is fun. What do you think of that?
Yes. And I don't want to say we're fortunate enough, because obviously it's your situation and Arden's diagnosis that brought you to channel it to this. I think you could have been successful, whatever your topic would have been, whatever your thing would have been, you could do this with anything.
You're making me think I should start
from it.
You're nice. You're making me think I should start a New Girl podcast. Joe,
let me tell you.
Joe, you know New Girl?
I've heard you say, I would listen to it because I love that show. But I have heard you say that, you know, you hope people listen, learn, like absorb, and, you know, not purposely move on, but, you know, you're here for the people that need to take the tools and the information and go. I took the tools and the information, and Joseph is better for it 100 times over, but I don't want to go because I consider this part of his treatment. I consider this, like, if I want to know what's coming up, or what the cutting edge or what might be happening, this is where I go. Right. I don't go to the news. I don't go to the website. I don't go to, because your content is interesting. Your content is relevant. It's
timely. It's evergreen.
It is.
Sometimes.
It is.
Joe, do you listen to this?
I do.
Oh, well, thank you.
Took a long time to get. That.
Well, I mean, I understand.
Yeah, it took a little while, but I do.
So I want to talk about, Joe, when you and I talked on the phone. Would you like to play some golf in Orlando, Florida, and support a wonderful type 1 diabetes organization? You can do that. Go to touchedbytype1.org and register now for the Golfing for Diabetes. They're calling it Golfing for Diabetes, but for is F-O-R-E. You get it. It's punny. Listen, they're a great diabetes organization. I don't know who wrote that pun. It's not up to me. You understand what I'm saying? Doesn't matter. You want to play golf. You're in the Orlando area. You want to support type 1 diabetes. This is pretty much a slam dunk for you. Touchedbytype1.org. You like that? Little dreamy music. And we're going to talk about Omnipod. Omnipod makes a tubeless insulin pump. It's actually the very same tubeless insulin pump that my daughter's been wearing since she was 4 years old. She is almost 18, so that's a very long time. That's how you do math around here. That's a very, very long time. And really, it is, because you wear an Omnipod every day. My daughter has had one on every day since she was 4. It has been nothing but a friend to us in this trip. Why do you care? Well, maybe you're on injections and you'd like to have a little finer control over your boluses or your basal insulin. That you could definitely do with the Omnipod. Maybe you're trying to decide between pumps right now and you can't figure out which one's the one for you. Well, that makes sense too. I don't want you jumping into something that you don't want. How can you be sure? Well, you could take advantage of Omnipod's free 30-day trial of the Omnipod DASH. To find out if you're eligible for that free 30-day trial, all you have to do is go to omnipod.com/juicebox. If you're eligible, you're using the Omnipod DASH for free for 30 days. That should give you plenty of time to decide if you want to keep going or not. And if you don't want to keep going, Omnipod's not going to hassle you. They'll say, hey, thanks for giving it a shot. But if you want to, it's very simple to continue on. Now, why would I choose the Omnipod over other pumps? Well, you've probably heard me talk about it on the podcast a number of times. Chief among those reasons, there's no tubing. Omnipod is a tubeless device. So, yes, you have a controller where you tell it, I would like to put in 10 carbs worth of insulin, please. But that thing is not attached to the user. So there's no infusion set followed by a big long tube that goes to a controller that holds the insulin. You have to clip to your belt or your pocket, or I don't know where you would clip it. Probably stick it in your pants. I don't know. You do whatever you want with it, I guess. But with an Omnipod, you don't have to worry about that. You understand? That's not attached to you. You just have this little pod. It's just stuck on. You can see it at the website, omnipod.com/juicebox. Just head over now and take a look. You can bathe, run around like a lunatic, swim, jump in the ocean, jump in a river, jump in a lake. I guess you could jump out of a plane. You can do all these things with an Omnipod on, and you're not going to get your tubing caught on anything, and you don't have to disconnect to go in the water. It's a big deal. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Just go check it out and see what you think. Now, you may be thinking, Scott, you know what? I'm not going to get the Omnipod DASH right now because I'm really looking forward to the Omnipod 5. It's just been announced. It's going to come out soon. That's what I want. I want that algorithm pumping. I want that sweet, sweet algorithm pumping, and that's what I'm waiting for. You don't have to do that because with the Omnipod Promise, you remember I mentioned the Omnipod Promise at the beginning of the episode. I told you I was going to tell you more about it, and now here we are. The Omnipod Promise says this. Super simple. You can upgrade to Omnipod's latest technologies for no additional cost as soon as they are available to you and covered by your insurance. Terms and conditions apply, but you can find out all those details at omnipod.com/juicebox. So there's no reason not to get that Dash now, even if you want the Omnipod 5 later. For full safety, risk information, free trial terms, Omnipod Promise terms, all you have to do to find out those terms and conditions is go to omnipod.com/juicebox. And now we get back to Joe and his mommy.
Which time?
Well, the very first time.
Okay.
So was it overwhelming, or did things make sense? Like I'm trying to understand, come at it from my point for a second. I don't really know you, right? I know your mom, like we've just gone over who your mom is, big picture. That's my image of her. There's a little bit of me is like, oh God, this woman's going to make her son get on the phone with me. So, you get on, and in my heart, what I'm thinking is there's no way he wants to be doing this. Like, that's my first thought.
I mean, I didn't want to, you could say I didn't want to for the sheer fact of out of just laziness, but the fact that she was like, this could help you with diabetes. I was so fed up with it to the point where there would be instances where I'm just like, you know what? I don't need insulin. I'm not doing this. And I would just leave my blood sugar the way it was.
Okay.
Because I was just so fed up with how bad I felt physically, and just how it would do its worst at the most inconvenient times. So yes, it was weird, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? If this can help, fine, because I'm kind of done.
Good.
I just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
I got you. I like it when people say this stuff always happens at the most inconvenient times, because I think when would be convenient for your insulin pump to oddly just stop working, right? Or
when you're laying in bed with 0 plans, doing absolutely nothing for the next 2 days.
And that's not, well, please. I think the truth is how often does that, I guess if you're young, it happens more often, but
yeah,
I have not. Your mom and I are like, wait, that happens to people?
Yeah, exactly.
So when we get off that call, how did you feel leaving the call? Did you feel hopeful, or did you?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because granted, I think I was at the point where I thought nothing was really going to help me, and I kind of just had to live with this. But when you said this works, my daughter's diabetic, and I would hear you on, my mom would show me on the other podcast, you talk about Arden's numbers, and it helped a lot. Hearing the podcast you did with Arden, because I just liked hearing her perspective, because I can see a lot of similarities in the way that her and I think.
Mm-hmm. Her episode almost immediately became the most popular one that's been up in years.
Really? That's funny.
I can believe that.
It blew past the numbers. Usually Dexcom news, when Kevin comes on, those are usually the ones that reach out beyond my sphere. So I see them, I see them download beyond what a popular episode usually does. And Arden's jumped right past those.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you feel a lot the way she described?
Yeah. I could relate a lot to what she said.
Okay. Yeah. I think, I had her on because in my heart, I think that's how most people think about it, and kids. And I think adults and kids and with diabetes. And I think that it would be really difficult for a parent who's coming from a different perspective and has different goals and desires and loves you in a different way than you love yourself. I think that they needed to hear that. And part of why I waited so long to put Arden on the podcast is I was waiting for her to get into a spot in her life where I thought she would be really articulate about it.
Right.
Yeah. I just think that it's not, I don't know. Some people, their lives look on Instagram. You can't pretend that that's really what life is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't have Instagram because I think it's dumb.
but everybody puts their best foot forward, mostly, and their expectations are big. And I think sometimes around health, a parent can say, well, I've put all this effort into it. I want this kid to be really healthy. We are accomplishing that. The kid's just going to keep doing it. And I can't even tell you if Arden's going to keep doing it. We're leaving for a couple of days now. And this is our first time. Arden's going to live in this house by herself for almost 4 full days.
Right.
And I tried to walk into her room last night. I said, hey, I need to explain something to you for while we're gone. And within 30 seconds, she was not listening to me. Mm-hmm. And there is a little voice in your head that goes, other people would pay for this conversation. And I don't say that. I don't say that out loud. I just said, hey, Arden, this is really important. We've been transferring power away more quickly over the last year, and even more so over the last 3 months. And I've let her make mistakes, and I've let her live with higher blood sugars, and, and so that she could have experiences. I'll tell you one recently. She had a site that wasn't good. And I said to her, Arden, I think your sight's bad. And she said, no, it's my period. And I went, okay, I think it's the sight.
Right.
And after
but you have to let them.
Yep. After 18 hours, I get a text from her. I'm peeing a lot. And I was like, yeah, your blood sugar's high. And she's like, well, that's because of my period. I said, that's because the sight is bad. And so I let it go about 10 more hours. And, her blood sugar was very stuck in the 150s, like, in that range, which I know.
And you must have been crawling.
Well, I know some people are like, wow, 150. Shut up, idiot. But, I'm a person, I look at a 120 and I'm like, why are we not doing something about this? Like, so I went into her and I said, okay, hey, I'm like, that's enough now. I'm going to insert some privilege here. We're going to change we're going to change your site. So I changed her pump. I injected, I made a bolus through an injection, and I said, I'm going to have your blood sugar down in about an hour and a half. It's going to get stable. I said, we're probably going to have to catch it on the other side because you've been high for a while. So I used a fair amount of insulin here. And then the peeing's going to stop. And then that all happened. And even at that, a day later, when I tried to tell her something about while we were going, she was like, oh, buddy, leave me alone.
Right.
So that's human nature.
And you know what? That's the biggest struggle. I found that the biggest struggle with Joseph, because it's not just diabetes, it's life with a teenager. It's you're making those decisions with everything else they're doing, their homework, their rules, they're going out. And that's where we got to the point that, like, when he first spoke with you, I totally agree. He was ready. He felt all those feelings and was ready to do this, but it dwindled away a little bit because he wasn't in a place where he was finally ready to say, holy crap, I really have to take a hold of this.
Joe, talk about that. Would you please? Like, you had like a reckoning, and then you were just like, forget it, right?
Joseph, you mean?
Yeah, Joe, tell me about that.
You mean like you're asking when I realized, like, what I felt when I realized that I need to take care of this?
This time right here to me is the whole episode. That's why I had you on. So you came on we talked, you understood suddenly things, but that didn't make you put them into practice. Is that right?
No, no, definitely not. It had to become routine and had to become something, because I knew one way for so many years. I was just like, do this, I'm alive, okay. And then, this is not long ago. I listened to one of your episodes. I don't remember which one, and I like ran into the kitchen. I got home from work and I ran into the house. I was like, Mom, I can have seizures, and she was like, yes.
He had no.
And
that was right after we finally came to a blow up. And I don't even know if he remembers this was the time. I know it was the pivoting moment where he changed. I had my typical meltdowns and breakdowns and fights and this, and I just lost it one night. And
because our relationship was not
good
at all during this.
No, because I felt like all I was to him was a mother nagging about diabetes.
Yeah. And
as much as I tried, it was just always an issue because it wasn't controlled. And then I got to the point that I was obsessed. Like, if I tell you obsessed, I used to think to myself, like, what would I be doing all this time if I didn't have to? And I didn't want him to know that because I didn't want him to feel bad. But, like, if I didn't have to worry about this and read things about diabetes and listen to what would I listen to? Well, I just felt like it was all consuming.
Who am I without this, right?
Right.
And
right.
What am I losing?
What would my life have been if I didn't do this the last 10 years?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way towards him. I would do anything for you. You do anything for your kids, no matter what they had or what they had to go through. But I just felt like we were spinning our wheels, and I felt like we have to get to a point that he gets this so we don't have to think about this all the time. Like, I would hear it, and then it got to the point that, and this was definitely on me, this wasn't anything he was intentionally doing, where I would listen to the podcast and it was almost like it seemed like everybody was getting it but us, or I couldn't relay the information enough to him to make him care. So then I was getting to the point that I was like, well, I don't even want to hear these happy stories because this is making me sad that we're not there yet. What's going to get us there? I don't want to fight about this. And I had one night, I remember saying to him, I can remember saying, your diabetes is going to kill me before it kills you. And it was just because when he was little, I didn't at 10 tell him, you could lose your foot one day if you don't, because I couldn't even control. I didn't know. I didn't
understand it even that well.
Right. And I just wasn't I'm not going to tell this. As he gets older, he learned and new things, but I never made it a point to say, oh, and did you know this could happen too to you? If I didn't want to threaten him.
Let me jump in here. Joe,
him.
Joe, when she says that to you, is that one of the first times in your life you see your mom as a person and not your mom?
Yeah, definitely. When she said that, I don't remember exactly what I felt, but I knew I was, damn. I was like, I got a thing like that. That's not right.
Was it a guilty feeling or a loving feeling?
Both.
Yeah.
Because I always tell her I always did tell her you need to let me take the reins a little bit. And granted, I get why she didn't let me because I didn't know nearly as much as I do now or what she knew.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I didn't even know I could have a seizure. I heard you say Arden had a seizure once, and I was like, what?
Did you wonder, what else could happen to me that I don't know about?
Yeah. No joke. Yeah. That's what, between the fight we had and that, because that's when he started listening. What happened was after our fight, we kind of had a come to Jesus moment. And I said to him, okay, this is what we're going to do. If you're good with it, I'll give you 2 episodes a week. And I'll listen to it again too. And we started with the pro tips. And when you're through with it, we'll talk about it. And we did that. And that's how we did it. And and then when he shortly learned about the seizure, I remember saying to him, you telling me that's all I had to tell you 4 years ago? And this would have all been, he was like,
probably not. He just would have found a different way to ignore you. That's all.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Well, think of
because he still ignores me. But...
Yeah. Oh, please. Well, you don't know how to text. Why would I listen to you?
I'm trying.
But imagine the dynamic that gets set up, right? You're a person. You're not a professional diabetes person. And suddenly your kid has diabetes. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You don't know what you're talking about.
No.
You do a division of labor where your husband's like, all right, you can do that. I'll go make money. And, your daughter, I'm assuming somewhere is like, nobody's even paying attention to me anymore.
Oh, please. Right. That's another part of it.
Yeah. So there's all this happening. And then it's not easy. And it's not intuitive. And it doesn't go the way they tell you it's going to go. And it brings in all of these interpersonal and psychological issues. Doctors don't talk about them at all. Once in a while, they'll say to you, you should see a therapist. Has anyone ever told you at the doctor's office?
Who, me or Joseph?
Yeah, either of you. Have you ever heard that? They just recommend therapy.
I did that. No.
Yeah, but
truthfully, I sought that out on my own because I knew I needed to. I knew I was getting to the point that I was just like, this isn't healthy. This isn't good for me. And then I got to the point that I'm like, if something happens to me, he's screwed.
Yeah, I mean, really, he's not screwed. He has to start over. If that were to happen, let's just say you get hit by a train and you're gone, right? Prior to this happening, his health declines, and with some luck, he figures it out on his own and does, or he doesn't. That's sort of just the way it is. For every person who comes on here and tells that good story, I try to have someone come on and tell the other story so that you realize that probably more people, I'm going to guess many more people than not, are not doing well managing insulin and with their diabetes. And that really could be your lot if you don't understand these things. To me though, the worst part of the whole conversation is just, it's that feeling like the dynamic between the two of you had disintegrated. And you were going to build an adult relationship where that kid was not going to call you very much after he moved out. This almost kind of dissolved your mother-son relationship. Is it better now?
I think so.
Oh, you both?
I think so.
Good. Well, he said yes too, and who knows, maybe he just wants you to pay for college, or maybe maybe he really means it. Let's find out. Joe, how's it changed?
He's almost done.
It's almost done. How's it changed for you?
How has the dynamic changed?
Yeah.
In a sense, I think it's brought us closer together because we've never had to work on something together as hard as we have with diabetes. But like, and no one else, and this is no one's fault. It's just like no one really took the reins except her.
Mm-hmm.
Like my sister knows about it, my dad knows about it. Obviously, they both know I'm diabetic, but like the only
Does it stop there?
almost
Yeah.
like every once in a while, I'll get a text from my sister because I have all three of them on the app for the Dexcom.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, I get a text from my sister, and she's like, "You good?" And I could be like 42.
Hey, I have plans this weekend. Don't die.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like that. But
his friends text him more
My
when
friends text me a
something's
lot.
wrong.
Do you have friends following you?
Oh,
yeah, I have a
it's
bunch of
hysterical.
them. It's really fun. It's really funny.
Oh, it's nice. You guys started like a little social group around your blood sugar?
Yeah, we did. It's really cute.
It started when he was on the track team in high school.
Wait, that's another thing. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
That's
ahead.
another thing. What?
No, that's just another thing about it because I played sports like since I was in 7th grade, and my teammates would look at me and be like, "You're really pale, dude," and I'd be like, "Really?" And then I remember in middle school, the nurse used to have to come out at like 3:00 and be like, "Joseph, check your blood sugar," and then she'd give me like milk and a graham cracker, and then I'd have to go run a mile, and I'd puke.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
It's just a weird balance, but that was just another way. Like as I got into high school and everything, it was another reason to find balance in it and like find what worked because I had to perform. Like I was expected to perform a certain way and participate in my team, so I had to figure it out.
Isn't it terrible that it has to devolve before? Like, I mean, it seems like a rule. Like some people don't. Some people find. I mean, I guess technology is definitely helpful. The podcast is pretty readily available and it's popular, so people can find it sooner. But you guys had to basically go to like a point where you're like, well, we're all going to just die here if we don't do something. Like that sucks that it has.
Like you had to almost break before.
Yeah. That's
things
the part
got better.
that, as you're talking, like the part of my brain that wonders how to make the podcast better. Like that's the part I'm thinking about right now. Like how do you stop people from having to have these experiences before they can have better experiences? You know, like how do you it's just and it's even the way our healthcare system works, right? Like we're not going to help you. We're not going to help you not get cancer, but we'll definitely help you after you get it. And that kind of stuff. So
got to start a diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
I agree. I have doctors on and I talk to them and I have private conversations and I still don't know what the answer is. Because it's too big of a picture and everybody can't. Like, Joe, how well did I do in an hour of bringing you up to speed?
It helped me understand a lot more than doctors did. That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't know why you couldn't do that a couple times a year with somebody.
You said more in an hour than his doctor told him in 8 years. Or me.
It just shouldn't be that way.
No.
And it doesn't need to be. Like, I mean, all joking aside, there's nothing that special about me. Like somebody else could figure out how to do this. You know what I mean? Like, or try or want to do it. Like maybe that's the difference. Maybe there are people,
but not deliver it in the way you deliver it.
Well, I'm amazing, but that's not the point. The point is that like, other people could do it in their own way, and that might be reasonable as well. I'm sure there are people who are, but obviously there's something about scope and reach that's lacking.
Right.
And that's why just the podcast format just works. Mm-hmm. Because
I have to tell you, once we found the podcast, like I said, his doctor still gave the same advice. Still, once his A1C started coming down, he was like, "Oh, you're doing really good." Never asked why, never asked how, never, showed an interest or
why didn't you
doing anything different. And at that point, Joseph liked him, I liked him, and it was kind of like, look, he gives us our prescriptions when we need it. We go to get checked, but we've got the podcast. So let's do both of it. We're good. I'm not going to find, he was still, Joseph's turning 19 next week. I'm like, you're going to need a new, he was a pediatric. And I'm like, you're going to need a new one soon anyway, which we actually found. That's a funny story. I have to tell you that. So we just kept going because I was like, well, he's not a bad guy and he doesn't bother us and he's happy we're happy. It was like, let's just keep going.
Yeah, you turn into those Madagascar penguins. You just smile and wave.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Thanks a lot for coming. No, I love it. Thanks for you. Oh, that thing you said earlier about moving my site over an inch. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, like he didn't. It was like it was like he was a robot every time we went in.
Do you think that doctor is somewhere right now thinking, I did a really good job with that Joe kid?
Yeah, he's probably thinking, where is that Joe kid? I haven't seen him in a year because we left.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if like you left and he thought, what I said really worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Who knows?
He's like, I did it.
Just like, he goes home to his wife. He's like, lay down. I'm victorious.
I'm all.
I saved a young man today. I told you I'm God. Like, yeah, I mean, I wonder how much of that complex that they talk about with doctors, like, I wonder how much it reinforces them. Because I take your point. If it was me, I'd run the A1C and come in the room and go, hey, what happened?
Right.
What'd you guys do? You know?
Nothing.
Scott, you'd be a great endo.
We would just curse for 10 minutes and talk about getting your basal right, and I'd get you the hell out of there. That'd be it.
Nothing.
You think that would be okay if you know how much more kids would love their endos if they just said fuck once in a while during the
Show they're real.
Yeah, 100%.
It's true.
100%.
Just be relatable.
You'd be like, I went to my doctor's today. And he said
Guess what he said?
He said some crazy stuff about 4chan and then asked me something and like, and I don't, by the way, I should back up right now. I don't use 4chan or 8chan, or I don't even understand what that is. I reached for something crazy on the internet out of my brain just now. So, meanwhile,
now you're going to get emails.
All the conspiracy people who listened to the podcast for a brief second were like, I knew he was on board.
I knew he was.
and now they're like, oh, damn it. But yeah, there's something about, I just listen, you guys can probably appreciate this more than people, or Marilyn, you at the very least. I'm 50 years old. And when I was in high school, the talk of the town was that a man from New York named Howard Stern was coming on the radio. And we just all started listening. Mm-hmm. And what I took from it more than anything is that he had my attention. Mm-hmm. And if something wasn't in his mind entertaining, it got the kibosh real quick. They put a stop to it, right? Like,
it didn't work.
And I think about that, like, even in this conversation with you, like, Marilyn, I know I have to run you over a little bit because you're going to get going on a thought. And if I don't stop you, you'll just talk for an hour, right? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want you to talk. But you're also from the East Coast, so you don't mind when I run you over. You go, oh, okay, it's his turn to talk now. And you just like, kind of back out of it a little bit. That only happens when the voice in my head goes, move on. Mm-hmm. And I have that voice constantly while I'm talking. Mm-hmm. Like, that's enough information. We understand. Move on. Go. Make it interesting. Mm-hmm. Keep it going. Say something else that's valuable. Like, so my brain works that way when I'm recording the show. And I know that most people who don't know Howard Stern just think, oh God, I'm listening to a podcast about diabetes from a guy who loves a podcast or loves a radio show that, where they degrade women. But the world has changed significantly. And yes. I've gotten to watch a real progression of that man and his broadcasting skills.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And I've learned a lot from that. So, like it or not, if you like this podcast and it's helping you, in some small way, you can thank Howard Stern.
Thank him.
Yeah. So, and to me, that's it. Like, how are you going to sit and listen to something so dry and boring and technical?
You're not.
No. And it's not going to make any sense to you either.
I have to tell you, when I said, like, when I initially searched you and I said there were a few ahead of you in the search, I gave it a try. And I'm not even kidding you. Maybe it's just the way I am too. 2-3 minutes, I'm like out. Like, if I don't get that initial grab and that initial, it's not going to happen.
Oh, I have that feeling. I turn podcasts on and I can't get through the intros sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, oh nope. God, is it going to be like this? All super serious and no personality. And listen, one of the nicest things I can tell you is that if an actor comes on the Stern Show to talk about a movie, he'll interview him for 2 hours. They'll never mention the movie
at all.
And when it's over, I feel like, oh, I should see that movie.
Right. Because you learn, right.
And so most people don't understand that. Most people are real ham-fisted and they push things forward and slam you in the face with it and think that that's the way to get somebody to do something. But because
he knows the questions to, yeah.
I'm making a podcast where I want you to I want you to understand how to use your basal insulin, and I want you to pre-bolus and understand the impacts of your foods and boring stuff that when people start talking about it, you go, oh, my brain doesn't care about this. I don't care about this. This is a world where you could pick up your phone and choose between a dozen different services that will pump music or video into your face. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have a dry conversation about the glycemic index, and you're going to listen.
Crickets.
Yeah. You just heard your son say he thought he was okay.
Right.
Like, why would I listen to that? I'm okay.
In a way, that's what was frustrating too. Like excuse me, when I first started listening, I knew Joseph would love your sense of humor. I knew once he heard you, he'd be hooked. Like, I knew it. So it was like just getting him to, huge. But he had to be read. He had to, and I have to say, like, I hope this doesn't come off as, Joseph and I fought all growing up. Like, he was an amazing kid when it came to diabetes. He never, ever gave me grief. If I said, we're going to try it this way, he really was easygoing, did whatever. The only thing, like I said, he didn't want to pump. And that's how I felt like, this kid gives me no grief with this. He was handed this at 9. I'm going to force that on him. And I'm blessed that as he got older, he was athletic and he cares about his health and he eats right and he works out. And to me, it's almost like, oh my God, I'm going to have to worry about that part of it. So it's made him an amazing, don't get me wrong. He's still a typical 18-year-old that I could.
Joe, she just can't let you have it, man. She's got.
No, I can't.
She's giving with one hand and taking with the other right away. It's a very Catholic move, Marilyn.
Sorry.
Yeah. You just guilt him and then hit him and then smile at him.
But I do believe it's made him mature beyond his. Like, it really did give him a part of his life that I think even he would say he wouldn't be this way without the diabetes.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I believe that. I think Arden's who she is because of it too, in a good way. But there are plenty of people who are hurt by it too.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, it's just like, it makes you think differently as you grow up. Because I had diabetes so early to the point where, like, I had diabetes through the transition of being a kid and becoming a teenager and becoming like a young adult. Mm-hmm. So like, if I'm out now and like people are like, oh yeah, like take a beer, take this, take that. I'm like, I don't want my blood sugar to go up. No, like, I just don't care. I don't drink ever because I'm just like, I don't want to bolus for this. It's gross. Like, and I'm going to go to 250 in half an hour. I was like, I'm not doing it.
Well, and talk about that and feel badly. Like, when did you realize that you didn't feel well?
As far as what?
Like, at what point in your recent history did your blood sugars get regulated to the point where you're like, oh God, I didn't feel good before this?
Oh, I would be like, I saw the amount of energy I had, and I saw like how workouts changed. And even when I started like gaining better control, I got better at the sports that I played because my body was functioning the way it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. But yeah, probably when I started getting an actual grip on it, I was like, wow, I'm 150 right now, and I feel like I'm 250. Like, I'm dizzy, my head hurts. I'd feel. I've always been able to tell when I'm low. I could tell when I'm 100. Like, I just know when I'm dropping.
You can feel the fall.
But yeah, I feel every fall I have.
Okay.
It's like a spider sense. It's weird.
It's happening.
You wish.
I wish.
Oh my
yeah.
God, can you imagine being Spider-Man? Amazing.
Tries.
Because you could get the hell off of Long Island without being on that expressway. Right? Oh, that'd be brilliant. That's what I would wish for if I was both of you. a way to fly over that road. Well, so Joe, what do you think? I mean, tell me about an average day now. Is your mom very involved anymore with your diabetes?
She's definitely involved. And if like something goes wrong, not that it's like drastic, but excuse me, if I have a rise or I drop, I'm like, oh, all right, Ma, I did this. Like, what do you think? And then she's like, okay, that was definitely timing. Like, tomorrow, try the same thing and do this. And I'm like, okay. And then we do it the next day. And more often than not, it works.
Yeah. How long did it take you to trust that it was going to work?
The more I listened to your show, the more I thought it was going to work because everyone seemed to have good results with it. So I was like, all right, this has to do something.
Yeah. That the fear part it's huge for some people, and some people just know. Some people can just look at it and go, all right, I mean, if it's going to work, it's going to work. And like Arden's a great example. You could tell from her interview that, you know, she just believes in what we do.
Yeah.
So, like the idea that she's going to have like a big problem doesn't even really occur to her.
Right.
Which that kind of comfort lets her do things that other people would be freaked out by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hold on, I'm telling her to add carbs to her last meal. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. And by the way, Arden's blood sugar is 142 right now. She had eggs, bacon, and a piece of toast.
I was just 142.
Were you?
I think I'm higher now because I had a fat rise for breakfast, so I'm a bit higher than I'd like to be right now. But I have a bunch of insulin on board, so I'm good.
Yeah. You're
What do I tell you?
I was she just let you guys
I'm
argue.
sorry.
No.
She's gonna do it right now, Scott, on the podcast.
The extended bolus is your friend.
Do you think she's sending you a very long text right now behind your back?
Yeah, she's typing it out. I guarantee you.
No, I'm not, because my cell phone is far away from my laptop.
Oh, so the
otherwise, I don't even know what you are right now.
Good.
Okay, good. Don't look.
How does that make?
Yeah.
Do you have anxiety around that, not knowing what his blood sugar is?
Me?
Yeah.
I would have 6 months ago. There are days now, and that's how I know things are better. I mean, obviously, number-wise, I know things are better through his A1C and just the way he controls it. But I find at work, I can go through and all of a sudden think, oh my God, I haven't even checked. I don't even think the alarm went off. Like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. Or he'll text me and be like, I'm catching it. And then I'll look and be like, well, what's happening? I used to look at that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, all the time.
Constantly. Is it fair to say I've improved your sex life?
Isn't that a conversation we need to have?
No, hold on, Joe.
Are you talking to me or Joseph?
No, Joe, I just want to dig into your mom's sex life for a second while you're listening. I mean, like,
no, I probably have to get my husband to listen to the podcast. That's another story.
So that's an interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to gross him out. He's not going to want to hear
I know.
this.
I was just teasing. I just had to say something to make him like panic for a second. He's like, right.
That was the most alert I've been all day.
I have to go.
It's still super early, dude.
What's it like?
Is there any time that would be good, Joseph?
Yeah. What time of the day should we get back together and discuss whether or not your mom and dad's sex life is picked up after your?
When I'm not in the room.
I am a happier person. I'll give you that.
Good. I'm glad. That's excellent.
Yeah. No, I think I know I have become a much better person with this amount of stress left from my life, gone from my life.
Joe,
I still worry about him. We're still working on, he's good. I just hit him last week with them because now I have this, now that he's in a space where he's in a better place. The other day I said to him, Joseph, you know what looping is, right? And he was like, what? I'm like, you got to listen to this episode. And I sent him the one with Katie. Because I'm now that he's in, I wanted to try the DIY loop, but I knew I didn't have enough confidence in myself to do it a year ago. And I knew he wasn't in a place that I'm like this, we have to start at step 1 first. Let's get this under control. Well, but I do feel he's at that place now. Like we both can't wait for Omnipod 5 to come out.
Oh, it'll be before you know it now. But Joe, are you still in high school or are you in college now?
I'm in my last year of college.
In your last year of college.
But I'm only in I'm in a 2-year program. So
okay. All right. And what's
it hasn't been 4 years.
I was like, hold on. He's a genius. He started college.
Yeah, no. Scott, do you know what it took to get him to go to a 2-year college?
If you saw my grades, you would not.
I would not think you're a genius. Well, what are you planning on doing after you finish the associates?
Right now, I'm an intro mechanic at a dealership. So probably stick there for a little while, see if I can move up and become an actual tech. And then
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, Joe, you can talk for yourself. Go ahead. You keep talking.
No, that was basically it. Just see if I can move up, and then I love trades, and I want to learn like as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So whether it be go back to school for like a welding job or stay a mechanic and move to different shops, just see what else is out there for me.
Did you hear the After Dark episode recently with Mike, who was an auto mechanic? I mean, he got diabetes over 30 years.
I haven't.
His all of his complications got so bad that he had to stop working with his hands. Mm-hmm. So
I could never do that.
Yeah. I told you about that one, Joseph. He was the one that he initially, that was an amazing episode, because when I listened to his How We Eat episode, I would have never thought that was the same person.
Yeah.
To know the complications that he had.
You did tell me about that one. Yes.
You know who I said he was on before, and he
Yep.
talked about how, yes. And I had said, listen to that one.
No, it's
that was amazing. And that was,
because when you listen to him in the How We Eat episode, you're listening to the man who understands now. And,
right.
And his life from that moment forward in the way it is. And then when he tells you about the previous parts of his life, and
right.
then, to what we talked about earlier, like you can't turn back time, that idea of wasted time and wasted opportunities.
Yep. That's why I wanted Joseph to hear it.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it was him until I started listening. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, why, his voice sounds like, why do I know his voice? And then when I realized who he was, I was shocked.
He has a very specific voice. He really does.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
But okay, so I mean, I'm not bringing it up to I'm not trying to bug you out. It popped into my head. Like, he was a mechanic. He loved that. He, used to work on pianos. He loved that. And then he lost his dexterity. He lost half of both of his pinkies, so, and the reason I want to tie that all together is because you said something earlier that made me think of this. So you talked about like, Joe's was a good kid, and he got along with everything, and he didn't complain, and he did the things he was supposed to do, and doctors are telling you you're doing all right. And the truth is that none of that really matters if it's not true on the number side. Do you know what I mean? Like, correct. if your variability isn't tight and your blood sugars aren't bouncing up and down, and you're not spending a bunch of time with real high blood sugars or real low blood sugars, you can have as good of an attitude as you want. You're still, your body's still being hurt, and so I think sometimes we commingle I have a good attitude with everything's going okay with health. And for some reason we give more credence to the part where like, oh, he's smiling, it's fine, we're paying the mortgage, than like, my blood sugar was 180 for 7 hours yesterday. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I don't know if it's because it's easier to control that stuff. You know what I mean? Maybe like it's easier just to put a smile on your face than it is to figure out how to pre-bolus.
Right.
But I don't see it that way. Like the way I see it is that those things that you do can lead to those other things you say actually honestly being true, instead of just wishful thinking or blissful ignorance.
Right.
So and it's just not, it's not easy, and it sucks, and I wish nobody had to do it. But since this is the situation, I mean, just put a little effort up front and save yourself countless hours and days and weeks of stress and anxiety. And Joe, is that working for you that way? Like, are you okay? Like, if you moved out right now, would you be all right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That's just, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, you're not sure, but you're confident that it would be.
No, yeah, I think I'd be pretty good because, if I need something, she's text away, and she normally helps me just figure out what I could have done better and like how to prevent it for next time. And I worked full time this entire summer. I was out 8 to 5 every single day.
Yeah.
And, I had to learn how to work with it because like I'm a mechanic. I'm on my feet the entire day. Mm-hmm. So I had to learn how to reduce my basal and do well because I was exerting energy, and I was, I had a lot of activity going on. So my blood sugar behaved differently, and I would go back and forth with her and be like, okay, let's reduce your basal for X amount of hours. And as soon as you eat, take this amount, take less here. She just helped me work it out.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
I think I could be okay.
Marilyn, that's really wonderful that you're able to help him like that. I want to tell you all that one of a memory that still endures for me is walking you through putting on your first pod through a video chat. It was just hilarious.
It's funny. Even that, not related to diabetes, but I remember him starting it, and he texted me and he was like, oh, Scott said he can do it this time. And I was at work, and I was like, oh, but I want to be there. And he told me that Scott was like, what are you, 4? Tell your mother you could do this yourself. And to me, I was like, you know what? He's right. Why am I hovering? Why am I like, yes, I want to be there for him. But I was like, oh yeah, I have to let him do more. And if he fails, and he'll figure it out again. And excuse me.
Yeah.
But I remember you telling that, and I'm like, oh God, he's right. He's even good with parenting things.
Well, it's hard not to take Joe seriously. His voice is deeper than mine. So
isn't it ridiculous?
Yeah.
Oh, you know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if he says something, Joe, by the way, that's a real thing in life. Just say something in a commanding way and people will listen.
He does.
Cool.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's one of the unintended secrets and consequences of the podcast. Like, I think I have a voice that it makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
You do have a very good voice. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just, that's dumb luck. You know, because I have turned on other things where the guy starts talking and you're like, I'm not listening to that. You know, like,
absolutely.
I can't hear you squeak through the next hour of this. I don't care how good the content is. You know?
That happened with one of the first diabetes podcasts I heard. And it was a woman, and I thought, nope, can't do this.
Oh, gosh, I feel like I know who you're talking about.
You might.
All right. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should have?
Joseph, do you have anything?
No, I think I pretty much covered everything.
Feel good? If you listened to this and it was 2 other people, you'd be okay with this?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you did.
Yeah, I'm
I think
okay
you
with
guys
everything.
did a good job. I think you guys did a good job too. I was interested. Was anybody ever nervous?
At one point, I honestly was. I knew what I wanted to express and why I wanted to come on, but I did have that feeling of like, what in the world are we going to talk? Like, what am I going to say? What? But no, you have a way of. There was nothing to be nervous about.
Good. Oh, I'm glad. I'm very glad.
Yeah.
I think everybody. Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, Ma, did you want to tell them about the new endo we saw?
Oh, but
I just know you were excited about that. So.
Yeah, quickly, because Joseph sounds like a 32-year-old man, we can't really see a pediatric endocrinologist much longer. And I know with this whole transition of him doing things, I wanted him to find an endo local because, you know, eventually I'm not going to be going with him anymore to his visits, even though I still want to. So I called around and I wanted to find someone who thinks the way you, Scott, the way you think, and would be on board with us doing all this. So I made some calls, asked some references, found a guy local, interviewed his office manager as if I was interviewing him for a job, and had a feeling like this guy might be a good fit, young guy. So we go for the first appointment, and I failed to tell Joseph that he was having blood work done that day. So that didn't go over well. We were not having a good time in the waiting room, right, Joe?
Yeah, I used to be petrified of needles, and then I got diabetes, so I kind of had to muscle through that.
Yeah.
Now they're just inconvenient.
He was the kid. His pediatrician still says he is the talk of like her dinners and her when she meets colleagues, because I could never tell him when we had a well visit or when he had a checkup, because I literally would have to chase him in the house to get him into the car for a doctor's appointment.
Joe, you ever throw hands at a nurse?
Oh,
did I? Did I ever hit
No.
anyone? I don't think I hit
no,
anyone.
Janet punched the nurse for a strep test.
Yeah, surprisingly, the non-diabetic kid hit a doctor.
No, but he had, when he was little, and I swear this is what did it. At 18 months, he had a blocked tear duct that he had surgery on, like a procedure, and he had he was in the hospital for a hernia, and well, Joseph, I hope you don't mind, an undescended testicle when he was 18 months old, but he's fine now.
No, but your voice is fine, so it must be where it belongs.
Yeah, he's got both. He's good. So anyway, but I swear with that blood work and staying in the hospital and surgery and going in the operating room, I swear subconsciously that did something to him, because after that, to get him even to the pediatrician for a shot, it would take the nurse, the doctor, me. It was a workout. I had brought him for well visits without shoes on because I couldn't rest. He was a peanut, but I could not get him. And he's the one that's why his pediatrician will still say, of all the kids to get diagnosed with this, I remember when the blood work came back, it was like, no, not him.
Not the kid without the shoes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Joe, never have kids. That if that's not what you're hearing right now, I don't know what you're hearing.
Right? He knows. He'll admit it.
Oh no, I was terrible. Yeah. But now it's like, now when I'm putting on a pod, I'll like be looking at my laptop or something, and I'll miss the needle cap, and I'll put it through my finger, and I'll be like, ow, and I just pull it out.
Well,
yeah, he has changed.
You got past that one.
So
the new endo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, And it gets to the point that we're still a little nervous, thinking like, I hope he's on board with this whole way we treat things and stuff. So he's like, oh, can I see your PDM? And I was like, ooh, okay, here we go. And he's looking and he said to Joseph, you bolus a lot during the day. And I thought, oh, here we go. It's either going to be, what are you doing? Or he was so thrilled at the way Joseph would be aggressive with numbers and his tight range. And it was just, and they had such a rapport, like they just got along so well. He was I'd never seen a doctor so elated. He's like, he said, Joseph, if half my patients looked at it the way you look at it, and he's like, this would be fantastic, right, Joe? He just was and Joseph loved him. And I just feel like, okay, he can see this guy and they're going to be on the same page. And he told him all the complications he's going to avoid and how people don't, they don't treat as aggressively as he does. And it was just amazing. It made me feel like, okay, he's going to be good. He's got this guy. They're on the same page. It's not going to be like a robot every time he goes. And it was amazing.
So you're going to be okay when he leaves the house?
I think so.
All right. Joe, is there a girl?
And while we're in the waiting room, like, should we tell him about the podcast? And I'm like, maybe wait a visit or two.
Joe, no, I'm always between a rock and a hard place on that one, because I do want people to tell their doctors about it, and yet I don't want you to do something that's going to make your doctor think that you're a kook. So
exactly.
That's why on the first visit, I thought, oh, let's just not say why we do.
Joe, can you imagine Marilyn charging through the door yelling about, it's a podcast? They'd be like,
that's the secret. I'm like, Mom,
but now that I know that we know he's thinks the way, it's like he thinks the way we think.
Yeah.
So it's like, absolutely. Next visit, you're going to tell him all about this.
I would make a joke here about me being the secret, but I fear people would think I was being serious, so I'm not going to. But it's it would be off. It could be off-putting to some people. But at the same time, spreading the word is going to help somebody else, because a lot of people come through the podcast through doctors.
Absolutely.
So it's
I tell so many people, even now, my brother, he's a perfect example. We just in texting, I didn't even tell Joseph this. I was texting him this week about something, and my brother just started FIASP. And I started telling him, my brother is still very not as aggressive as I'd like him to be with his treatment, but that's
Joe, when you move out, she's going to start working on him.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's my next project. Oh,
you ever need advertising? Just shoot her an email.
You have a business you'd like to advertise, Marilyn? What do you got?
Oh, I'll tell you. I would go to the hilltops and speak about this podcast.
Nice.
I still will get you to Long Island. I still have that one guy who would sponsor it, and it will happen when the world is back to the way the world was.
If I ever speak in public again, I'll be surprised the way everything's going. But I actually have somebody designing like a crest, like a logo for the podcast.
Really?
And I hope it comes out really well, and I have a lot of hope. It's somebody with type 1 who wanted to help the podcast and is an artist, and her art is really amazing.
She would put a banner on the side of her car and drive her.
I'm literally hoping I can get
I'll wrap my car.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a tattoo before I die. Like just one person who was moved by it enough to get a tattoo or name their child after me.
Don't tell me that. She tells me I'm not allowed to get more tattoos.
Oh, okay.
He just got 2 this year, and plus I would never let him get it. He doesn't want like a type 1. Nothing against people that get the type 1 tattoos. But
Joe,
you know what I did, Scott?
Go ahead.
I told her, she knew I was getting my first one. I told her I booked an appointment for a second one. And she goes, did you ever think about what these could do to your blood sugar? And I go, I've done extensive research, Ma. There's nothing you could tell me that will make me stop doing this, because it's safe and you need to keep your numbers low. Otherwise, if they're high, they can get infected. So I was like, do not tell me I can't do it.
You meant during the healing process, like the couple of days while
I don't know. Healing? I was just reaching. You were just reaching. To get a second one.
Joe, I just want to tell you something, and I want to make sure, like, Marilyn, how old are you?
52.
Okay. 40 years from now, she's going to be up your.
I'm going to haunt him when I'm gone. He knows I will.
No, she totally will.
She is never going to leave you alone, man. Does she treat your sister this way?
She
just leaves her alone.
All you guys do is gossip. You don't do anything. Like,
we don't do anything.
I'm not saying you don't do anything, but you're not. Obviously, she's not diabetic. You have no reason to be on her. She's also 22. She's an adult.
I'm imagining your sister right now listening to this going, yo, man, what's your problem? Do not point
You're
that
picking
gun
the
at
wrong
me."
week to bring this topic up, Scott. Perhaps you can branch
I
out
know
into like the
everything. Don't
Dr.
worry,
Phil
I understand what's
podcast, and we might be on with another episode of those
You can
non-diabetic related, diabetes related.
All right. So guys, listen, I've really enjoyed this, and I honestly would keep going, but I have to get into a car and drive 10 hours to somewhere. Yeah, it's not fun at all. When we get off, I'll explain to you why I decided to drive instead of flying.
Well, at least it's not Long Island traffic.
No.
All right, so it can't be that bad.
Going that way.
That's so sad.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing this, Joe. I hope maybe one day, Joe, when you're older, you might come back without your mom and
totally
talk a little more about this. First, of course, I'd like to thank Joe and his mom, Marilyn, for coming on the show and having such an open and honest conversation. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Touched by Type 1 and remind you to head over to touchedbytype1.org and check out all they're doing, including that golf outing. And of course, to get yourself a free, no obligation 30-day trial of the Omnipod DASH, if you want to know if you're eligible for that, all you have to do is go to omnipod.com/juicebox. And don't forget that T1D Exchange survey, t1dexchange.org/juicebox. It's a pretty long episode, so I'll just thank you for listening. Remind you that I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Tell you not to forget about that Facebook page, Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place to talk about Type 1 and honestly Type 2. I got all kinds of peoples in there. If you're using insulin, Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes may just be the place for you. It's on Facebook and it's private, so you don't have to worry about anybody poking around. You got to answer some questions to get in there. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I don't even know what I'm saying at this point, so there's very little chance that you know what I'm saying. But you should check out the Facebook group. What else? Diabetes Pro Tips started. My brain just shut off. The Diabetes Pro Tips, they started episode 210, but you can also find them at juiceboxpodcast.com and diabetesprotip.com. At diabetesprotip.com, you'll also find the Defining Diabetes series. There's a ton of stuff on the website you can check out. And everything, of course, is available wherever you get audio. Spotify, Apple, or any other audio app you can think of. The show should be right there, and it will definitely be free.